5-card stud, gentlemen.
I don't know how you managed, but thank you for bringing Pahoo inside tonight. He'd never admit it, but I know he gets lonesome standing out in front, particularly if I'm winning.
Fact is, Yancy, Pahoo's become something of a celebrity around Bourbon Street. Jack of spades, which spells trouble for you as usual.
I don't know who you are, but you gotta help me. Get this to the administrator immediately.
What's this all about? Who are you?
My name is Fillmore.
This man is my prisoner. I'll take him along.
Who are you?
Weems, Lieutenant 2nd Pennsylvanians, attached to the staff of John Colton, the president's administrator in New Orleans.
Please help me. They'll kill me.
One moment, Lieutenant. This man is a civilian. You don't have jurisdiction over him.
In this case, we do. He just attempted to assassinate the administrator.
Well, in that case, he's all yours.
Don't believe in the traitors.
Take him away. Sorry about the disturbance.
I have a feeling you're just about to get into trouble again.
Pahoo says the lieutenant's lying. What else can I do?
Detail, halt!
What's the idea?
Oh, we thought we'd just walk along with you in case you have trouble with him.
Please, you gotta help me.
Thank you, Derringer. We can handle it.
Well, you haven't so far. As a matter of fact, I don't think you three lads are soldier boys at all. Now, which one of you veterans would like to tell all first? Or maybe we should start with the prisoner.
Watch out!
Shoot him. Dump him in the river.
Here, drink soup. Not drink soup. He hasn't had a drop of water or food since it happened.
Pahoo, you and I, we have been warriors together. And it is no disgrace to be fooled. The brave warrior, he wipes the blood from his eye and again seeks his enemy. We are blood brothers. And I will go again to fight. If you stay here with wounded spirit, then I must go alone.
You two sure speak the same language. Oh, Mr. Colton.
Forgive me, Obadiah, but I took the liberty.
Come in, Mr. Colton.
Thank you.
You alone?
Lieutenant Bergen drove me out from the city. Well, what happened? I thought you and Pahoo were indestructible.
Just unlucky. You know a man by the name of Fillmore?
Fillmore?
We tried to interfere with 3 of your soldiers last night that had arrested him. One was a Lieutenant Weems attached to your staff.
Never heard of him.
And another was a saber-swinging colonel that came out of nowhere.
You're lucky you didn't cut your ear off.
Fact is, I think the soldiers were rigged. The other fact is that, well, Mr. Fillmore gave me a letter addressed to you from the President of the United States.
Well, where is it?
It's gone, along with the 3 soldiers and Mr. Fillmore.
Yancy, may I talk to you privately?
Well, this is private enough. Obadiah knows I'm your underground agent.
And I told Marsh Yancy that he can get into enough trouble of his own without going outside the law for you, Mr. Colton. No disrespect intended.
All right, Obadiah.
It's all right, Obadiah. You'll find out what's going on anyhow.
Fillmore is a messenger from President Johnson. He's carrying a pardon for a condemned man in the military prison.
Oh? Who's that?
His name is Philip Hampton. His case has been dragging on now for 3.5 years.
Philip Hampton from Alexander, Louisiana?
You know him?
Sure. He's a Southerner who went with the Union, joined the Federals.
Well, that's the man.
Yeah. You know, Phil Hampton was married to Meg Ashtree. She was one of the prettiest girls in... What happened to Phil?
He shot his commanding officer.
Oh.
There was a court-martial, delays, appeals, extenuating circumstances, stay of execution 5 times.
Well, you'll just have to grant him another stay under the circumstances.
Of course. But the aggravating thing is the man should be freed. And I can't do that without the president's pardon. Yancy, if you could recover that pardon somehow.
I'd like to see Phil first.
All right, I'll give you a pass to see him.
Come in. Mr. Derringer, I'm Colonel Charles Tate, commandant of this prison.
Oh, Colonel, I wouldn't have bothered you with the pass, but, well, the captain said you wanted to see everyone who visited Phil Hampton.
Yes, that happens to be true. You a friend of his?
Yes.
Well, I should think you'd hate the sight of him, deserting the South to fight on the Union side.
Colonel, each man to his own belief. After all, the shooting is over. I have a feeling we've met before.
Not to my knowledge. All right, Mr. Derringer, the guard will show you the way. I'm giving Hampton 5 minutes with you only because I'm shooting him in the morning. So you see, the shooting isn't quite over.
Time will tell. Phil?
Yancy?
It's been a long time.
Yancy. Well, how on earth did you ever find...
How's Meg?
Meg? Didn't you know? That's the reason I'm here. Meg's dead.
I'm sorry.
And they're executing me at dawn.
I haven't got much time, but... Well, the administrator, he's going to give you a stay of execution. And as soon as we get things straightened out, well, we think the president is going to give you a pardon.
You do? The president? Oh, Yancy, you don't know how long I've waited for this.
Just simmer down. We've got to talk fast. Now, tell me everything.
Well, it was the spring of '65. We invaded Alexandria.
So that was your hometown?
Yeah. Yeah. The townsfolk all ran when we rode in. All except Meg. She ran to the village square and raised the stars and bars. My commanding officer raised his gun. I said, don't shoot, it's my wife. That didn't bother him. She was just being brash and brave. She wasn't armed. He shot her. I shot him.
Who was he?
Captain Arthur Tate.
Tate? Well, the commanding colonel here. His name is Tate.
Yeah, his brother.
Phil, I gotta get you out of here. Guard!
You come back and see me again, Yancy.
Sure. You can bet your life on it. Guard! It was simple enough. All I had to do was get the administrator to issue an indefinite stay of execution. I went back to town immediately, headed for the Cabildo to see John Colton. But all of a sudden, no administrator and Lieutenant Bacon, his bodyguard, was in the hospital. Where did it happen, Lieutenant?
Miles south of your plantation. 3 soldiers jumped us, shot me, took the administrator.
Well, I couldn't help John Colton until I found him. And now Phil Hampton had one slim chance, a man named Jody Barker. Jody was the pickpocket of Bourbon Street, a sneak thief, devoted coward, and a friend in need, when he was in need. Nothing happened on Bourbon Street that he didn't see, so I decided to pay him a visit. Good evening, Jody.
Yancy?
I think you've detained your friend long enough. Back in the corner. You were on Bourbon Street last night. What happened?
Nothing. I didn't see nothing.
Jody, I want you to orate like a congressman. Because if you don't, I'm going to cut short your professional career before the police do.
They ambushed you. Then they shot the fellow who was running and left you in the Indian.
Then you went through my pockets.
I was going to give you the money back, Yancy. I swear. I was pressed. That's all.
There was a letter, Jody. What happened to the letter?
I've got that. I didn't know what to do with it.
The dead man, what happened to him?
Dumped him in a river.
Recognize any of it?
Yeah, that lieutenant and those two privates, they look like some hired hands from the Live Oaks gang. Listen, Yancy, about the money,
Keep it, Jody. My blessing.
And you really expect me to believe that this is the real thing?
No, Colonel. But it is true.
For your information, Mr. Derringer, the real thing has to come through John Colton, the administrator, in which case he would have already ordered a stay of execution. No, Mr. Derringer. I'm afraid I shall have to treat this rather feeble attempt as a rank forgery.
You really do hate him, don't you?
I'm only carrying out orders, Mr. Derringer.
This is an order for his release.
And how did you come into possession of this rather remarkable document if you didn't forge it yourself?
I'm sure you have a very good idea, Colonel.
I'm rejecting the pardon.
You are questioning the authority of the President of the United States?
No. I'm questioning you, Mr. Derringer. You're under arrest. Cover him. Search him.
Oh, that won't be necessary.
Yes, put him in a cell next to his friend. He'll have a splendid view of the execution from there.
Yancy, what are you doing in here?
They've abducted John Colton. There's no stay of execution.
Well, what about the presidential pardon?
Colonel Tate refused to recognize it, said it was a forgery, and threw me in jail.
And it's all over.
Well, no, the poker game isn't over yet. Colonel Tate's determined to bury you, even if he has to commit treason.
He really hates me.
Just enough to hang himself.
5 times he marched me out there at dawn and tied me to the stake. Then he lined up the squad, and each time he yelled, "Ready, aim, at ease." 5 times. He said he just wanted me to get used to it.
Well, now I think I'll just have to break his little pattern. I'm going to get out of here.
Good luck. I found that kind of difficult.
Guard! Guard!
What's going on in here?
Guard!
What's all the shouting about?
You know, you really ought to search your prisoners. Open the cell door.
I've got the keys.
Get it. But remember, the only life I have to lose is yours. Over the bunk. Strip off that uniform.
Take me with you, Yancy.
I can't, Phil. But I'll be back.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. Hampton.
Derringer.
You fool. Well, we still have Mr. Hampton. Well, you've kept putting it off as long as possible, haven't you, Mr. Hampton? But not quite long enough.
Squad, hit, hut, preset, huh!
You have a nice morning for it, Mr. Hampton. Fire by squads. Front rank fire, kneeling. Kneel. Aim. Aim.
Thanks, Yancy. We're not out of this yet. Up the steps, wait on top of the wall. First man that reaches for a rifle gets you all killed. It's a 17-inch scatter gun, so I wouldn't advise it.
Derringer, you'll hang for this.
Pahoo, if the colonel gets out of line, save one barrel for him alone. I'd just like to see how far he'll bounce. Don't be a dead hero, Colonel. Pahoo had tracked John Colton's abductors to Cressley Hall, the burnt-out Maridale plantation, which was a perfect hideout. Perfect, that is, if you did not leave tracks and if a Pawnee Indian was not following your trail. You might need this.
Drop the gun.
You got about 5 seconds to live, friend.
That's more than you've got.
Like anything more, Mr. Colton?
Oh, thank you, Obadiah.
It's beginning to look pretty good, Phil. You know, it's a good thing we're the same size. Here, try the vest on.
Been 7 years since I wore clothes like these.
Yancy, I still don't understand how Colonel Tate could have gone so far.
Because the man's sick, Mr. Colton. You know, he just might have gotten away with it if we hadn't found you.
But you gave him the presidential pardon.
Well, I've got friends who could have forged it. You were unavailable for another stay of execution. No, it would have worked. It still might.
Impossible.
Not at all. We don't really have anything on Tate. We can't prove he abducted you. And the men he hired were Live Oak's gang killers. It was a brilliant idea of his to have them play at being soldiers.
But Lieutenant Hampton is free. Surely now he won't go ahead with his plans.
Why not? The only true evidence that we can get against Colonel Tate would be the testimony of the hired killers, Lieutenant Weems and the other soldier, whoever they are.
It's unthinkable that Tate can ignore law and command to such an extent and get away with it.
Now, wait a minute. I didn't say he would get away with it. I said he might.
What will stop him?
His own hate. Phil, there's a tiger on the prowl. He's probably changed his stripes, but, well, I need live bait.
Whatever you say, Yancy.
Ridiculous. I'm not going to have Lieutenant Hampton put in jeopardy again. Now, why don't we find those other 2 thugs and sweat a testimony out of them?
Because, unless I'm mistaken, he's already gotten rid of them. Evening, Jock Mahoney.
Good evening, Yancy.
Hello, Francine.
What happened to you?
Oh, just a little accident. Madam Francine, my guest for the evening, Mr. Phil Hampton.
Good evening.
How do you do?
Welcome to the club. Any friend of Yancy's
He's a friend of yours?
I was going to say any friend of Yancy's is a fool for trouble. But you're right, too.
Mr. Hampton?
Did this happen the other night?
Well, sort of.
Do you realize you had aces wide when you quit the game?
Maybe you'll deal for us tonight.
Mr. Hampton?
Phil, why don't you take my lucky chair? The cards seem to fall well there. Anybody mind if I open the French door?
Yancy, I still think this whole idea is complete madness.
I feel exactly the same way, Mr. Colton. That's why we decided to bring it to a quick finish.
Something wrong?
Mr. Colton and I have a big bet on. He's afraid I'll lose.
You mean he's afraid he'll lose?
I mean what I mean. Deal?
Draw poker, gentlemen.
I'll play these.
You should have killed me.
I'll leave that privilege up to your commanding officer.
A commanding officer?
The President of the United States. Mr. Colton?